everything that I thought I knew before seems to be completely wrong now. And that's a hard place to be, to clear the slate and just be able to ask the question, okay, what comes next?
Why am I always like this? Or how does this flow into my trading? Why do these habits affect my trading?
Any journey worth taking is going to involve setbacks that will be emotionally triggering.
Hey everyone. Okay, so in today's episode from our trading summit, we're going to talk a little bit about the biggest surprises we had in our first 2 years as a day trader. I've got 4 day traders with me here today. I've got 2 experts on trading psychology, and it is winter, so I'm wearing my jacket and a hat. It's been a rough winter, so there's a padlock on the thermostat. I do not want anyone to try to increase the heat in here. We're keeping it at 62. All right, so what I learned in my first couple of years of trading is that the income is definitely not guaranteed. I continue to learn that today. Ups and downs. But why don't we go around and if anyone wants to kick it off with something that you learned in your first 2 years as a trader. Larissa, go ahead.
There's a few things. The first is the rate of change in growing an account. To give you an example, when I started trading in the simulator, I was expecting a daily goal of $1,000 a day trading live. And when you start out with an account that's $2,500, unless you have a crystal ball, that's pretty much impossible. So it really hit me hard to see that coming from someone who is a fast learner, how slow my growth and my progress actually was going to be if I really wanted to be successful in the long run. And another thing that sort of impacted that was what Ross had just said, where he basically learned everything from scratch. And we had Ross to learn from. You know, we had all these videos of watching him be successful. And during the time that I started was some of the hottest times of the market that it's ever seen. So trading looked easy to me when I started off. And sometimes I actually wish that it was opposite, where I had learned in a slower market than in a faster market, or a hotter market, so to say. So the rate of change of success has been an eye-opener for me. And off of that, even the things that I learned about myself that I'm sure we'll talk about with the trader psychology, but parts of myself that I didn't even know I had. And then when I finally discovered that I had them, why am I always like this? Or how does this flow into my trading? Why do these habits affect my trading? Actually helped do a lot of like deep digging and personal growth on myself as a human being, aside from being a trader. So it's often, Ross does such a good job of like incorporating the trader psychology into trading, because for someone like me, psychology is 80% of trading. The mentality is like, it's definitely more than 50%. I can say that. So I really like that, warrior trading has that influence of trader psychology on the markets, because it's so overlooked and it's so important for your long-term success. And that's something that I did not realize, but I'm happy that I do now.
That's kind of why I wanted to hit on this topic with Ted and Diane both being here, because I didn't expect at all how much of trading would be like a head game and that this psychological battle, and how much my ups and downs trading would bleed over into my kind of day-to-day routine. I mean, it's much more than I would have ever expected.
Right.
I mean, to the point where we met, it's been maybe 12 years or so.
Not quite that long, but I think it was
2011.
It was 2011 going into 2012. I think. So it's actually been around. It's like over 10 years, close to 11 years now. Yeah.
So when we met, I was trading, and I was struggling. I would have green days, I'd have red days, and it was just like I was in this constant loop of 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, and I was getting myself so frustrated. I felt like I needed someone that could be my kind of support buddy in a way, to help hold me accountability buddy, a support buddy, because I felt like I knew what I needed to do and I didn't have the discipline to do it. And I feel like that's something, what you were saying about how this has kind of opened up the realization of these sort of internal struggles you have. I feel like if you put a really big sort of monumental task in front of almost anyone, there's going to be a realization that in order to get through this, I have to work on something inside. Like let's say it's someone who wants to get like crazy like physical fit, like do some like CrossFit or do like, you know, one of these big endurance things. I mean, it requires a huge amount of discipline. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, and you're going to find in yourself probably a struggle to do it. You know, and trading we call it a marathon, you know, and some people try to approach it like a sprint. Like I can just come in, make 10,000 this week or whatever. And that is never how it works. So for anyone tuning in who's hoping to get rich quick, this is not the place for you. This is something that some people have found success and have gotten rich, but slowly over very long periods of time. And it's not without a lot of hard work and a lot of work internally on that psychology stuff. So if you want to check out some more episodes, we can put some links down in the description, and we'll have some, depending on where this is hosted, we'll have some probably other videos that are from the same summit where you can learn more about these traders. So I don't want to get into the weeds on that in this episode specifically, but there'll be some others where we cover that. So Timmy, what about you for your first 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, to piggyback off of what y'all were just talking about, for me, it probably would be that it was so much in the emotions. I didn't think that, like, it is theoretically pretty easy to scale it from 100 shares to 1,000, but the mental side of that's really what I didn't think could, you know, if I have a bad day, I didn't think I'd be sad like all day some days.
Yeah, you're
like,
a guy from Alabama.
I'm like, people are like, what's wrong? I'm like, you know, you have no idea. Yeah, I just lost a week's paycheck in like 10 seconds. Your friends think you know, and it's just,
I hear you.
And it's getting to the point too where last year was a really good year, and this year's just, you know, basically to where I'm making the same I was last year, which for me with my targets and everything is like really tough to wrap my head around. But at the end of the day, there's so many less opportunities that if I'm still able to make, and I can look at my stats, I think I take 25% of the trades this year compared to last year. So four times as many last year. And it's like, but I'm still making the same amount this year. So there's definitely something on my PL side that is doing well this year,
sure.
you know, and it's just, there's not as many opportunities, which is tough, but you know, you kind of just have to adapt. And that's one thing too that I didn't think I would have to do as much of, is pretty much every week changing something in my strategy as there's different things
I have
that
to
are
agree
moving.
with that. Like, you know, when we hear, and we sort of know it's a fact that the market is designed to go up, but when I started out at like the hottest time of all times, I just had this like oblivious state of mind that the market was just always going to go up. And maybe we'd have these little dips a day or two, but for the most part, everything was going to go up, and we would have this type of price action and this type of momentum like every single day. And then once the colder times hit and we had some, you know, less conviction and less resolution on the setups, that's the times where you really didn't even realize when you first started out that maybe you're just now just getting good at something, and then it's not working. So you have to go and redo your whole strategy and your whole setup to sort of make it work in the market. And that was an eye opener for me this year for sure.
And that's a place where you can really spend a lot of time beating yourself up before you get to even the place of that conclusion of, okay, I have to do something different. Because so many people will go through just, you know, all that negative self-talk, and even in states of denial of, you know, oh, this is going to turn around, this is going to get better, you know, everything will be fine, but not being willing to face that place where I don't know what I'm doing. Everything that I thought I knew before seems to be completely wrong now. And that's a hard place to be, to clear the slate and just be able to ask the question, okay, what comes next? You know, what's going on here that I haven't been able to see? You know, where's the next edge that's going to help me with my trading?
And that's a place where Ted and I talk a lot about the idea of trading like a scientist, ideas of honesty and empathy, being kind with yourself, in order to allow for radical acceptance of where you are, where the market is. And that really helps in being able to come back to trading like a scientist, where it's not your fault. You're not caught up in self-blame around what's happening, but you recognize that the journey involves both successes and failures. Any journey worth taking is going to involve setbacks that will be emotionally triggering. And through that, making it through that, one thing that's very helpful is to be able to sort of put on your scientist jacket and say, okay, let's take this apart. Let's see what's happening. And going back to what Larissa said, making those adjustments to carry you through, but without self-blame.
And it can be really hard to get there. Like Tim, when what you were saying, with you have a bad trade and the sadness that hits you, and the way that will just stick with you all through the day into the next day.
Yeah.
The last thing you want to do is dig deeper into the very thing that gave you that feeling. But that's actually what you have to do, to get to that place. And that's where, having, the practice of kindness for yourself, so that you can meet that sadness when it arises, and then be able to go, okay, I got you, it's okay, let's look and see, can we figure out what went wrong, what actually went wrong in that trade.
The more things you're juggling in your life, the more, if you're not trading full time and you have a job, if you have a family, if you have other obligations that you're trying to split your time between, you might not be making that time that you need to go back and investigate the things that you really need to investigate to be able to tinker with and make the adjustments to be successful. And the other reason that people don't do it is because what if they do look at everything and there is no answer there? That's
Right.
the fear in the back of your mind. What if I just never really knew how to do this? What if I'm just a failure? What if I fail at this? And so it's the fear of not finding what you might be looking for that would actually hold you back from looking at all.
It even goes beyond what you were saying, just that not only can you lose, you will lose.
Right.
And how big do you want that to be?
Yeah, exactly. Like that ability to just accept, there are going to be days when you enter in a trade that looks great to you and it's just going to go against you.
Something that makes me think of is something that I found surprising in my first 2 years of trading was the need to go back and review trades that I had already taken. I kind of just, I would log trades. Like I would just log, like I bought and I sold and entry exit and maybe a couple notes, but I wasn't taking screenshots of every trade early on. I certainly wasn't screen recording while I was trading. And so the thing is, I would have days where I was red, but it wasn't as easy to go back and really figure out exactly what I had done wrong. Now, of course, that was, if on that very day I pulled up the chart, I could go back and look at it. But something that I think is really important for traders to do is to go back and do that every day.
Yep.
So when you have days where you're red, you can go back and you can say, well, what was the pattern? What was the setup I was taking? Why did I take this trade? And if you can't come up with a reason, then it sounds like you might have been just chasing money on that trade and just hoping to get, a winner, but without really a solid setup behind it. And then that's an area where you need to make a correction and try to improve. If every trade you took was a great setup and it just didn't work, then that's easier to cope with. And it's like, hey, I did the right thing. Now, if that happens 5 days in a row, then maybe that's when you have to start thinking about how do I adapt, right? I'm taking the right setups, but the market's, it's not responding the way I expect. How can I adapt? Is it avoiding maybe, I don't know, just for instance, like right now, buying more dips is performing better than buying breakouts, and trading with smaller sizes better because we're in a lower liquidity market. So like those are two little adaptations or adjustments that you could make to kind of fine tune.
Right.
But I think it's super important. So for those tuning in, I would really encourage you to develop a practice where you don't just. And I'm going to interrupt myself because I've met traders who I'll say, well, what are your metrics? And they don't know. And they're just trading like in a TD account or an E-Trade account. They've got positions that are open. They're so all over the place in what they're doing. They don't even have a strategy, but they're trading with real money. Right. If that sounds like you, look in the mirror and say, I need some help. I need to stop. All right, you guys stop what you're doing. And what I would really encourage is slowing down and starting to analyze the metrics of your trading, record your trades, take screenshots of your trades, document the ones that are working really well, but of course the ones that are not working as well. And approach this as like someone who's a scientist, very curious, genuinely curious. I'm sure we all, even some scientists, have some motive of wanting to solve this so they can become famous or make money or whatever. But trying to be just as neutral as you can at like what's happening here, what can I learn from this information?
No, but to piggyback off of that, I feel like, especially for me, I learn the most from my biggest losses, and definitely from when I'm red. I mean, that's one thing that I got to work on too, is when I am green, I tend to not review those trades as much as when I'm red, just because I'm like, oh, I did good today, blah, blah, blah. But there's still things even in my green trades that I didn't do well, or maybe I got lucky today, which happens, and I didn't take the best trade, but I am green. And if I don't go back and review that, then maybe I don't know that there is a mistake I made that I could make again. And this next time, it's going to really hurt me,
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of beginners do. They get that beginner's luck, and then they're like, oh yeah, I'm, super confident, and they start taking big losses. So,
and that's one of the things that I think Diane and I both see in so many traders that we've worked with. If you're getting to that place where you're having more consecutive green days, even like I don't know, some of your like long, green streaks.
Yeah.
It's that very success can actually make it harder to deal with when that red day comes.
Yeah.
Because it's like at that point, you're like even out of practice of, okay, how do I cut this appropriately? Because you don't see it coming. There's some place in the back of your mind, I don't want to end my green streak. And, the biggest danger for traders moving into that place where they're starting to find success, it's that falling off the cliff red day where they end up giving back like a month of profits because, this internal refusal to let it go.
And the idea that the buying into the fantasy of like, some part of you in the back of your mind, okay, well, let's just keep going. This will keep going kind of thing. But what Timmy was talking about is really important in terms of adhering to process over profits, the idea of reviewing not just the red trades, but also the green ones. It's a grounding. I mean, emotionally, and a grounding into the idea of I'm continuing to review. I'm continuing to watch, not becoming complacent.
Yeah.
As we're having this conversation, I'm having like all these memories of when you and I first started, and you had been trading for a little while, and I knew absolutely nothing about trading. So you would have to come in, you would actually have to teach me about, even the basics of what you were talking about. And I remember times where you would come in after a day where you'd just given a whole lot back to the market, had one of those falling off the cliff days where you just kept digging the hole deeper and deeper. And then you'd have to walk me through why someone would average down, why would you add to a losing position? That seems like the stupidest thing you could do. And then have to slow talk me through this very painful process that you just went through. But I think in many ways that was actually probably pretty helpful because it forced you to slow down and really ask that question of, why did I do that?
And I think that's so important too, that Ross had you as a support system, so to say, to not only empathize with, but help to understand like what he was going through. Because if you don't have someone who maybe can support you, not even so much as understand, but to support you when you go through those drawbacks, or when you're on the learning curve, or, when you're going through a red streak even, for example, before my partner really understood about like what a stock was or how to trade, I would tell him maybe, I had a $50 red day today. And his reaction would be, oh, ew, that's awful. But then I would have to say, well, no, it's actually not, because I followed my rules today and I prevented this trade from being much worse than it could have been. Oh, okay, well, then that makes sense. Once you have someone that can not only understand, but just so much as to support you, it helps you get through those times. And it helps you, sort of see that, maybe you're not being as kind to yourself as you should be.
Right.
Or, maybe there are some things that you didn't know about yourself, or maybe some advice that they can give you that you're not seeing because you're just so upset about your red day or your red streak or your learning curve. And so even if you don't have someone like that in your life who can be sort of like your support system, just attend the FOMO Friday sessions that Ted and Diane have, or even book a private session with them, because it's so helpful when you're going through something like this. You're not going to get through it alone. If you do, great. That's great for you. But just to have that extra support is going to just help you get back on the saddle to where you need to be. That's what I think.
Well, I think that something that a lot of people struggle with trading is not always having family support for it, and having a lot of skepticism. And, listen, this is a career where most people don't find success. So,
right.
I don't know the metrics of every career out there. I'm sure there's many others, becoming a Broadway singer or becoming a performer in some, arts and entertainment industry that is also most people might not find success. And so you probably have a lot of people saying, well, make sure you keep your day job, or, oh, well, make sure, you've got a backup plan. And a lot of people that kind of give you, sort of trying to talk you down. And then because of that, at least I felt this way, but I think a lot of other people do too. Because of that, then when you do have a bad day, they're the last person that you want to confide in. Because, right, exactly. So you're in this situation where you feel like you have to just sort of talk yourself through things. And so one of the things that I used to do a lot was, of course I had sessions with Ted, but even before that, where I lived in Vermont, it was kind of like everything was a long car ride away. So I would be driving and I would just it was almost like recording a podcast, except it was to nobody. And it was talking to myself, but I'm trying to glamorize it a little bit. Right. So I was just talking to myself, like talking through the trade that I had, the day that I had, and just, it's like journaling in a way, which of course is really, for a lot of people, is very meditative and helpful in processing things. But that was something that I definitely struggled with. And it's unfortunate that it's like that in trading, but trading's not exclusive to that. There's a lot of other careers, even starting your own business, a lot of careers that involve taking any kind of risk that I think people will tend to say, well, whoa, isn't the safest thing, to do this or that. And something that Danny said to you recently, he said that his nightmare is having a fixed annual salary, that this is what I make each year. Like he thrives on that. He eats what he catches. This, and that's a motivation for him to work hard. Timmy, you've got your own business, and of course I do, and I think a lot of people that are traders, we are fiercely independent. And we are driven by that feeling that I catch this for me, like this is my thing, right? But it is really important to find some type of, if you can, outlet for unloading the stress that does come with learning, right? And I didn't expect that to be something that this would be like a test of relationships, or that this would create tension between family, or that I would have to dread at Thanksgiving someone asking me how trading is going, or something like that.
Can be the worst question in the world, can it?
Yeah.
How's that trading going?
And it's not only your external relationships, but your internal relationship with yourself too. Until I started this journey, I had no idea how hard I was on myself. And not even saying you're your own worst critic, and not even saying, oh, you're a loser or whatever. But, if I would have a big red day, or, even a red day, whatever it was, something that happened in the market that I did not like, I would just force myself to work and to, that was my outlet, was working. I would work harder. I would do more. I would discipline myself to the max potential. And I didn't even realize how hard that was on myself and my emotional well-being, and just holding all this in and going and going and going and going and working until finally one day you just collapse, and that's not healthy either. So it helps to build that relationship with yourself, that internal relationship, and like Ted was saying earlier, really be kind to yourself and make sure you maintain that fine line of holding yourself accountable. Even how Nick said, look back at your trades find what you could do wrong, or find what you could do better, look at what you did wrong, and maintain that line of the accountability versus being kind to yourself. Because you also don't want to just be like, oh, I lost today, that's okay, I'll do good the next day.
A lot of this is the idea of meeting yourself the way that you would meet a friend. Or I even think about parenting models, right? You know, so it's like in a ideal parenting model, you have both some expectations or standards for your child, and then you also have an inclination towards supporting your child
lot of
and
love.
achieving that.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not turning the other way when, you know, the child's slapping the puppy or something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not
it's okay.
I just won't see that, and then it won't be a problem.
Right.
But it's actually, you know, taking the time to state the expectation and to explore what kind of support is necessary. And part of that support is kindness. And so kindness and acceptance too often can be thought of in terms of, oh, I won't look at that about myself, or I won't
Right.
look at that about my trades or my trading. I won't be honest with myself. And that's the opposite of what Ted and I are saying. That's why we often say honesty and empathy, that being kind enough to ourselves that we're willing to look at what's really there.
In a really honest way.
And starting with, you know, even when Timmy was talking about the depression earlier, this first step, just noticing it, you did that, you noticed it. And the next step, befriending that part of you that is carrying the burden of that, and helping that part to begin sorting that out. And what do we need to do? And hopefully that does lead to the postmortem or the analysis, you know, all of that deconstruction.
And I think that there's also there's a difference between being kind to yourself and forgiving yourself and not imposing some cruel sort of, I don't know, punishment on yourself. There's a difference between that and sort of lying to yourself, or I don't know, being kind to yourself where you're saying, oh, everything's fine,
Yes.
where you're lying. I don't know what
Sugarcoating.
While the house is on fire.
Yeah,
everything's fine.
right.
Well,
Like,
these are
That's what I
the
was trying
We
to
talk
get at,
about
yeah.
false positivity,
Toxic
magical
positivity, yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right, and that's exactly what you're talking about. It's you know, this compassion, this kindness is not the same as what we would refer to as a toxic positivity, because
Right.
if you are desperately repressing any criticism of yourself, you know, if you know, that's okay, I'll get it tomorrow, but there's nothing backing that up. You know, that's just, it's like, I'm going to show up tomorrow and do the exact same thing I did today, and you're probably going to get the same results.
Yeah.
And
You know,
it
does
ties
take, you know,
ties
the
into
analysis.
the topic you were talking about earlier, Ted, earlier on the drive over here topic of stagnation, you know,
Right.
and that same idea that there can be a way that we can kind of go so easy on ourselves that you know, I was saying the importance of the expectation and the support, that the expectation begins to move down and down.
Yeah, and I think that's the area where, as a beginner trader still trying to really figure it out, one of the things that you know, I kind of found surprising was just this complete absence of a written path of how to make money in the market. Like, there's obviously the stock market is here, and there's millions of people who participate in it, but there's not, you know, when I was getting started, you know, there wasn't like a guide, a handbook of like, this is how you trade to make money. Because, you know, the reality is, I suppose every trader is a little bit different, but you know, of course, you guys had the opportunity to learn from me, which helps you a lot. But it just feels like, you know, there's this sort of just general absence of a very clear, concise guide of like, this is that's like issued by the market, you know, because it's just this organic thing that changes constantly. And so when I was getting started and I would review my metrics, it was almost a little bit more exciting at that time, because I was still looking for that, you know, that diamond in the rough. I was still looking for, oh, is there in all of this, you know, all my strategy practice, is there something that's actually going to work? at this point now, when I have a rough patch, it's a little bit, and for you guys who are, you're all now been doing this for a while, it's a little different because I don't feel like I'm going to find a diamond in the rough anymore by going through and looking at all my stuff. When I have a week or a month where I'm not finding a lot of success or things are really slow, I start to feel a little bit more deflated, and I'm just like, I don't know, and I think that's where it requires really detaching from that monetary goal. And I think when you've been doing this for a while, a couple of years, whatever it is, you start to get accustomed to, I'm making X amount a month. I can expect that. And so then when you start to have months where you're coming up short on that, you naturally are aware of it, and you start thinking, oh, I'm coming up short. And I feel this tendency to start to grasp for straws a little bit more, to start to get a little bit desperate, right? To flail a little bit.
You just want to grab.
Because I'm trying to chase profit to kind of fill the gap between where I think I should be and where I am. And I think those are the times when I need the strength the very most to have the discipline to stay within the strategy, or to have the genuine curiosity to keep the strategy going while experimenting with a variation of it with much smaller size, knowing that those experiments will not fill the monetary gap because this is the exploration phase, but that maybe I discover something in there, like a variation of my strategy, dip trading, or, inversion, off of bottoms, reversals, whatever it happens to be. I think I just find that, what you were saying about being depressed, and you were saying crying in the shower and crying while you're
crying in the pressure washer.
Yeah.
Going to work with tears in my eyes.
It's just so easy to beat yourself up.
When it hurts really bad too.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do it again.
Right. Yeah.
After I took a $1,500 loss, which is my biggest loss, not crazy, but my problem is scaling up. So that's where other people have easier times with risk. And that's kind of where I struggle in terms of the monetary side, where I need to just cover my P&L and trade the chart and the level 2 instead of my emotions.
Sure.
Right.
I mean,
Well, and that's one that, in the work that Diane and I do with traders, and a lot of things that we talk about, that idea of stair-stepping your progression, like, because we all have this tendency towards all or nothing thinking. It's, I'm going to go from trading 100 shares to 1,000 shares in one day.
Right.
And as soon as you do make a big move like that, all of the flood of emotions that will come in and completely hijack and disrail you. But if you go, okay, I'm recognizing it's time for me to step it up, moving from 100 shares to 200 shares, and next week, or the week after, to 300-400. But we don't tend to do that. It's like we have that idea, I need to step it up here, and we take too big of a bite, and we can't handle it.
Well, I think this is I want to switch gears and talk a little bit about one of the other topics, because I think this kind of goes into stagnation in trading a little bit, because you sort of have your first 2 years where you're, having a lot of beginner experiences. You might be having a little bit of beginner's luck, and then you kind of get to a point where it's like, okay, how do I start to scale? How do I take it to the next level? So why don't we end this episode here, and then we'll continue on to the next episode. So for those tuning in, thank you guys for being here today. I hope you've enjoyed it. And hey, share with us some of your experiences and biggest surprises from your first 2 years as a day trader. All right, we'll see you for the next episode. Hey, I want to thank you for watching this episode. I hope you really enjoyed it. This channel has crossed over 1 million subscribers, and it's thanks to viewers like you. If you want to check out a couple other episodes that other traders are watching, you can see them listed right here. Thank you as always for tuning in, and I hope you subscribe to the channel.